Hello， 大家好，今天我想跟大家分享一下如何提高英语写作，尤其是托福写作这一块。前段时间我刚考了托福，我的口语和写作都是满分，但我发现就是市面上有很多视频跟教程都已经在围绕着口语，但是作为语言输出的另外一个很重要的体现，也就是写作，都是至关重要的，尤其是对将来要出国留学的同学，不管你是在准备托福的时候，还是接下来要出国开始写教授布置的一些作业。And given that there have been some big changes to the TOEFL test, particularly in the writing portion, I figure I share some tips on the general writing as well as just the new writing task in the TOEFL test. So stay tuned if you want to improve your overall writing skill and ace the new TOEFL test. The biggest change to the TOEFL writing portion, as well as the whole test, has to be the new writing task called Writing for an Academic Discussion, in lieu of the original independent task. Bear with me as I elaborate more on it. So this is just one of the examples that I'll show you in this video. As you can see, this is a new format. We have a new prompt, a new format. For instance, your professor is teaching the class on political science. Write a post responding to the professor's question. In your response, you should 1. Express and support your personal opinion, and 2. Make a contribution to the discussion in your own words. An effective response should contain at least 100 words. You have 10 minutes to write. So typically we'll have 1 paragraph from the professor, 2 paragraphs or 2 discussions from your fellow students. In this example, the professor goes on to say, today we're going to talk about the debate between economic growth and protecting the environment. Economic growth creates new jobs and gives people money they can use to improve their lives. On the other hand, if we protect the environment, it can be enjoyed both by ourselves and future generations. If you had to choose between prioritizing economic growth or protecting the environment, which one would you choose and why? Alex says, I would prioritize the environment. We only have one planet. If we don't take care of it, we won't have pleasant lives in the future. Economic growth can be important, but not at the expense of the environment. I think we need to shift towards more things, such as investing in renewable energy and promoting environmentally friendly technologies. We'll all live much healthier lives if the world around us is clean. And then another student, while I agree with Alex that environmental sustainability is important, I think that economic growth is the only way to solve many of the social and economic problems we face. We need a strong economy to create jobs, reduce poverty, and improve standards of living. Not only that, but when companies grow stronger and more profitable, they can develop new technologies that solve our environmental problems. So immediately you can see that the second student is already trying to acknowledge the first student's response. So in your response, you have to make sure not only to state your opinion, but also acknowledge Maggie and Alex's response. So sample answer number 1 is, this is a challenging topic, but I think we should prioritize the environment at this time. I strongly agree with Alex's idea that our lives will be unpleasant if we focus entirely on economic growth. I would add that if the environment is damaged by industrial development, we'll all be more likely to suffer from serious ailments like cancer and lung disease. These sorts of illnesses can be a real strain on our medical systems. Maggie raised the relevant point that it's possible that profitable companies will someday solve all of our problems using new technology, but she doesn't mention that they might arrive far too late to be of use. For example, it could take decades for an innovative company to create a source of clean energy. Sample answer number 2 is, while I appreciate the points mentioned by both Maggie and Alex, I think we should mainly focus on economic growth. This is because our lives will become unpleasant if the economy slows down. We all have bills to pay, and those require us to earn an income. Remember that many people have families to take care of, so they need to earn a regular income. That is only possible if the economy continues to grow at the same rate year after year. Some people may feel that preserving the environment is more important than maintaining our current standard of living, but I tend to disagree. My main focus is on the quality of life that people enjoy at this exact moment, not the lives that future generations will lead. So in sample answer 2, I kind of agree and kind of disagree with both students. I'm doubling down on the fact that I want economic growth. You could double down on one point, or you can disagree with one, agree with one. Choose your own stance. So now that you got the gist of a new writing task, let's break it down into precise steps in preparation and the formula to which you can answer. Professor says, today we're discussing the ethics of targeted advertising. Some people argue that online advertising, which uses personal information to target specific people, is an invasion of privacy. Others argue that it's simply an acceptable way to reach consumers with products and services they're interested in. What's your take? Do you think targeted advertising is ethical, or is it an invasion of privacy? Student A, Jessica, says, I think targeted advertising is an invasion of privacy. Advertisers shouldn't be able to track and use our personal information to sell us products. It's not fair to consumers. It's a violation of our rights. Instead, advertisers should focus on creating high-quality ads that appeal to a broad audience. By doing that, they can both increase their sales and show respect for their customers. Student B says, I disagree with Jessica. To me, targeted advertising is ethical. It's a more efficient way to reach consumers with products and services that are relevant to their interests. With the money they save by using more effective marketing techniques, companies can afford to offer lower prices to their customers. Plus, we can always opt out of targeted advertising by adjusting our privacy settings. As long as we get a choice, I think targeted advertising can be beneficial in formulating our response. Your sentences should be about 7 to 9 or between 120 words to 150 words. 所以这个时候就是你开始做笔记，而且是简写的笔记了。You need to develop this almost knee-jerk response to coming up with reasons. 因为10分钟说长其实也不长。Use all the abbreviations, symbols, and keywords that you can think of to map out your response. With that said, let's go into some sample answers. This is a controversial topic, but I think targeted advertising isn't an ethical problem, and I'm not concerned about it. I really like Mike's idea that we can just opt out of targeted advertising if we are worried about it. I'd add that it is extremely easy to do this nowadays, as internet browsers are very user-friendly. Even people that are inexperienced with technology can find the right settings and adjust them. Jessica raised the relevant point that companies should create advertisements that appeal to a broader audience, but she didn't mention how difficult it is to make advertisements like that. Society is more diverse than ever before, so it is almost impossible to create messages that everyone finds attractive. Small companies without large advertising and research budgets might go out of business if they are prevented from using cheap and effective targeted advertising. A lot of times, you don't even need to come up with your own original reasons. This sample answer just acknowledges Mike's idea, agrees with it, and then elaborates on his point, namely the one that you can just adjust your privacy setting, right? In this sample answer, it goes on to explain how you can do that and how easy it is to do that, whereas Mike just casually mentions it. And then we also acknowledge Jessica's response, right? Jessica raised the relevant point that blah, 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 blah. We're just agreeing with Mike and disagreeing with Jessica. And that should be enough. If you want to take it to another level, we can add one of our own opinions and double down on it. So, for instance, while I think Mike raised some relevant points, I really feel that targeted advertising is problematic. Nowadays, families are struggling to make ends meet, and they don't have money for frivolous luxuries. Unfortunately, people are easily influenced by what they see online, and personalized ads might cause them to buy stuff they don't need and can't afford. This is especially true when it comes to young people. A lot of my classmates can barely afford to pay their tuition and books, and they still buy expensive gadgets that are promoted on social media. Consequently, I think the government ought to come in and regulate this part of the advertising industry. So, instead of disagreeing with one and agreeing with the other, in this response, I'm just disagreeing with Mike. All the reasons are mine, right? So yeah, you can have two ways to go about it. Both responses acknowledge previous students' opinions. You can start your own reasoning and then conclude it with what you think people should do. There are some repeated patterns. There are common features to a paragraph well written that you can mimic. that you can make your own. So let's explore what they are. Number one, 你需要掌握基础语法，也就是说你每一个句子不能犯基础的语法错误，不能有缺动词的地方，不能有少动词的地方。Make sure you write sentences and give it to someone to check on your sentences and not have it be full of basic grammar mistakes. That goes without saying. That should be step number one before you embark on preparing for TOEFL or any other big writing task. Number two is to know a few complex grammar structure, a few complex sentence structure. 尤其是虚拟语态和倒装句，我觉得这两个a lot of times go hand in hand. 比如说 Had I known you then, I would have invited you to the Taylor Swift concert. Obviously, you could say, if I knew you before, if I knew you then, I would have invited you to the Taylor Swift concert. But 这里用到的是又是虚拟又是倒装Had I known you 这个是缩写，它完整版是 If I had known you, I would have done something.I'll probably dedicate another video or include a link to some of these complex grammar rules somewhere else. Number three is to make sure that your logic is coherent. One sentence should flow very easily to the next. And a lot of times you don't even have to have flashy sentences. You don't have to have big vocab. As long as you have a cohesive response where the logic is there, 考官就会喜欢这种逻辑比较清晰的这种 response. Number four, key element is use words you know. You can't use words that are too complex, that are too academic, that are too formal and almost exclusively written English, especially words that you don't know fully. And then finally, I took the liberty of breaking it into different scenarios, different keywords. So 第一个分类是当这个话题有争议的时候，或者当这个话题很 popular 的时候，你就可以说 Oh, this is a controversial topic. This is a highly contentious topic. This is a challenging topic. Or you can even preface your opinion by saying, this might be a controversial take. This might be a controversial opinion, blah, blah, blah. It's kind of a filler sentence. Obviously, when you agree, you can say, I strongly agree with blah, blah, blah. I strongly resonate with blah, blah, blah. Or I echo someone's sentiment. This is an even more abstract way of saying I agree with somebody. Don't worry, this is still very spoken English. It's not overly facetious. It's not overly pretentious. It's not academic at all. Like, people use it every day. Well, I think blah, blah, blah brings up relevant points. 或者 while I think blah, blah, blah brings up important points, and I think blah, blah, blah. 然后接下来你就可以跟他不同意。举例 For example 就是最简单的 For instance 或者你也可以稍微复杂一点说 Take blah, blah, blah For example Take blah, blah, blah For instance 最后一个分类是提醒别人比如说 Remember that blah, blah, blah Keep in mind that blah, blah, blah Let's not forget that blah, blah, blah So now that I've given you different examples and how to answer them, I think you have a better idea on how to tackle this. It takes less time. And this is only one of the reassuring, new, and exciting changes to the TOEFL test. Let's take a look at some of the other changes to the test. First off, the total duration of the test goes from 3.5 hours to within 2 hours. I remember my previous TOEFL tests before. It's always more than 3 hours. And by the end of it, I just couldn't do anything else. During my writing and speaking portions, I find myself just feeling loopy and sometimes distracted because it's been so long. And having that duration shortened to within 2 hours definitely is a huge game changer. This will drastically improve your test and help you ace the test because it shortens the time. It helps you focus more. You won't be tired and exhausted and overwhelmed by the end of it or like in the middle of it, right? And then by extension, because we have a shorter amount of time, you won't have the 10-minute break. So just keep that in mind and make sure to time your water intake well. 然后题型方面，读的时间也大大的缩短很多。阅读原先算上不计分加试是3到4个文章，然后总共是30到40题。现在没有加试了，而且又减少了一篇，所以总共是2篇，一共20题。So you'll feel a lot more refreshed by the end of it. 原先它是3到4个 lectures 2 to 3 conversations， 现在取消加事后是3 lectures and 2 conversations。 然后写作我们刚才说过了，总共50分钟调为30分钟，然后 independent 去掉改为这个 writing for academic discussion， 总共有10分钟，然后剩下还有一个 integrated。 口语的话还是不变4 tasks. So, alright, that's it guys. Now that I've given you the formula, now that I've given you all the technical tips, and that TOEFL has reduced its duration down to 2 hours, within 2 hours, I trust that you have no problem acing the test and get the best score that you can. Go out there and have your best shot. Best of luck to you. I'll see you next time. Bye.